Jai Shri Radhe. Day 63 of the readings of Sri Gosaiji's 252 Vaishnav disciples. Day 63, and continuing with the Varta about the poor Brahmin from Mathura, which is Varta 41, continuing here. The Brahmin Vaishnava who had the leprosy asked him who he had been in his previous birth, and he replied that he had been born into a Kshatriya family in Simhanand, and that he became a disciple of Sri Acharyaji, that he used to serve him in various ways. However, I had impure intelligence, and I used to smack their heads. I also used to tell stories about Vaishnavas to their elders. You have witnessed how my destiny befell me due to this offensive behaviour. However, once Sri Gosaiji has taken hold of your hand, he never lets go. This story teaches us never to take refuge elsewhere, than the beloved Lord. However, one should not trouble the Lord for one's own petty selfish purposes. One should also never trouble other Vaishnavas. The path of grace is known as Shuddh Advait, where everything is the Lord and nothing but the Lord, and cannot be adequately praised. The part 1 continued. The Vaishnava who had leprosy was very happy to hear the other Vaishnava's words. So thus concludes the story of the poor Brahmin Vaishnava who was the recipient of Sri Gosaiji's great grace and an accomplished Vaishnava. Sri Gosaiji was always pleased with him and taught him his true form and the greatness of Vaishnavas. There is really not any end to his tale. Varta 42, the story of a god of a Kshatriya from Mahavan who killed a snake. Bhav Prakash. He is a devotee of Tamasi disposition. In the eternal Leela, his name is Durga, who manifests from Madhurekshana and is thus a form of her divine loving mood. He was born to a family of clerks in Mahaban. His father did a lot of work for the local ruler and kept his son with him at work from the time he was 14. He taught his son all the ways of his job. When his father died, the son continued in his employment. One day he had to come to Mathura for some work-related purpose, and at that time Sri Gosaiji was in Mathura. He was currently debating with the impersonalists, and he defeated them. Seeing Sri Gosaiji's powerful effulgence, many divine souls came to take shelter in him. The son of the clerk also became his disciple. After his initiation, he stayed with Sri Gosaiji to learn all the ways of the path of grace. He requested Sri Gosaiji to give him some seva, and he gave him some of his handwritten compositions. He took leave of Sri Gosaiji and returned home. Part 1. This Vaishnava would complete his ablutions of cleaning his teeth and bathing as soon as he woke up. Then he would complete his seva to his Sri Thakurji. He would cook and make offerings, and then after accepting back the prasad, feed many Vaishnavas. He would do all the chores with his own hands and always chanted the Lord's holy names. He did not stop his repetition of the Lord's names even for a single second. It was a very hot day in the summer. No Vaishnava came to partake of prasad, so he went out to try to call some Vaishnavas for prasad. There was a snake on the path and it would not get out of the way. The Vaishnava waited 2 hours for it to move, but it would not, whatever he tried. The Vaishnava concluded that it was not his fault, and so he killed it. The wife of the snake followed the Vaishnava in order to bite and kill him back. However, he repeated the Lord's name day and night, and for this reason, she did not get a chance to even touch him. One day he started a conversation with a worldly person, and the snake's wife decided to take her chance. She rushed over and bit him. He died. The other Vaishnavas in that village began to discuss why he had met with such a death. When Sri Gosaiji was sitting in his Baitak and the Vaishnavas were gathered there, one of them asked him, "Oh, great Maharaj, that Vaishnava got killed by a snake bite. He was such a nice Vaishnava, so why did he have to die in this manner?" Sri Gosaiji replied, "The snake and he were enemies in a previous life. Death appeared in the form of a snake and found its chance when he neglected the Lord's name to talk about other matters. Time catches up on Vaishnavas who neglect their recitations." Thus Sri Gosaiji instructed the assembled Vaishnavas. Bhav Prakash. Here it is taught that a Vaishnava should never commit harmful acts to any type of embodied soul. They should also not associate with worldly and faithless beings. They must constantly recite the Lord's names, and in this way death will not obstruct their devotion. Thus concludes Varta 42, the story of the Gaurava Kshatriya from Mahavan who killed a snake. He was a recipient of Sri Gosaji's great grace and an accomplished Vaishnava. In reality, there is no end to his story. Varta 43, the story of the daughter-in-law of one businessman from Gujarat. Bhav Prakash. The businessman lived in Gujarat. He had one son whom he married off within their own caste. The daughter-in-law was very beautiful and youthful. She was a divine soul and had already been initiated as Sri Gosaji's disciple. She was an accomplished Vaishnava. Sri Govardhanachi could be seen shining in her eyes. She said to her husband, "I am a disciple of Sri Gosaji, and I will not eat or drink from the hands of anyone who is not his follower. If you become his disciple, then you and I will be able to get on with each other." The businessman's son asked her who Sri Gosaji was, and she explained, "Sri Gosaji is the Lord himself and lives in Gokul." The son recounted all of this to his father, who said, "Let's all go to Gokul and fulfill our lives by becoming his disciples." They went to Gokul and were initiated. The daughter-in-law then requested Sri Gosaji to grant them some seva, and Sri Gosaji blessed them by presenting them one swarupa of child Krishna. They stayed there for some time and learnt all the ways of seva. Then they all took leave of Sri Gosaji and returned home. They began to serve Sri Thakurji very attentively. Part 1. One day the daughter-in-law was sitting in the latticed window after taking prasad. She was closing off the little pan parcels she had been preparing for her Sri Thakurji by pushing tiny clove sticks into them. At that time, one Muslim man who was passing by looked up and saw her. He remembered their connection from a previous birth. Bhav Prakash. Why? The Muslim had the holy sight of Sri Govardhanachi in that girl's eyes. He became addicted to this vision and remembered their previous birth. Part 1 continued. After that, the Muslim would not eat until he had seen her. He would go and stand at her door. Only after he had caught sight of her would he eat or drink, otherwise he would just stand there. If anyone asked him what he was doing, he would say, "I cannot eat until I have seen her face." This was his practice for a long time. He remained hungry for days if he could not see her. Still he would not leave that spot. Her relatives and neighbours all came to know of this. They spread rumours of her bad behaviour all over the town and the district. Her household members became anxious and wondered what they should do. The man is always following her. They tried everything and tried to make him understand, but to no avail. The rumours spread. Her family members discussed whether they should leave that place in order to get rid of the problem. Then the daughter-in-law spoke up. "I have given you in this household much trouble. My coming here has brought criticism upon you. I should leave the house and the district. I should go elsewhere. But I have one request. If you will permit me to speak." The father-in-law told her to continue. "It is bad enough that I have become the object of such aspersions. The worst thing that could happen is that I have to leave my home and even the district. It would be good for all of us to go elsewhere. But why don't we all go to Sri Gokul? We will have the sight of Sri Gosaji, the 7 Sri Krishna Swarupas. We will see Sri Yamunaji too, all of Sri Gosaji's progeny, as well as the whole of the land of Vraja. This is my request. Please let me know if this suggestion is pleasing to you." The family members were delighted to hear her words. They said, "Oh dear daughter-in-law, well said. You have made a beneficial situation out of a misfortune. It must be the Lord's wish. The Lord's plan is always the best, and that rascal will forget us." Having taken this decision, the next morning they rented 2 carts and filled them with their things. On the next day they prepared everything. When the Muslim man saw the 2 packed carts, he asked the driver whose they were. He replied that one businessman's whole family was setting off for Gokul. We'll have to conclude here for today's reading, and we will continue tomorrow. So today is day 63, and सब वैष्णवों को जय श्री कृष्ण। आज के आनंद की जय हो जी। राधे राधे।